Eleanor Thompson's life in Maplewood, New Jersey, was a carefully curated tapestry of routine and reliability. At 55, she embodied the quiet strength of a woman who had dedicated her years to building a home that felt like a fortress against the unpredictability of the outside world. The house on Elm Street, with its white picket fence and blooming flower beds, had been their haven since she and Robert married in their early 20s. It was a place where memories lingered in every corner. The scuff marks on the hardwood floors from Emily's first bicycle rides indoors, the faded pencil notches on the kitchen doorframe marking Michael's growth spurts, and the cozy den where family game nights had once echoed with laughter. Eleanor's days began with the soft chime of her alarm at 5:30 a.m. She slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Robert, whose snores filled the room like a familiar lullaby. Downstairs, the kitchen was her domain. The aroma of freshly ground coffee beans filled the air as she measured out precise scoops into the French press. While the water boiled, she would stand by the window, watching the first light of dawn paint the garden in soft hues. Her garden was her pride, a vibrant mosaic of perennials and annuals. The roses climbed the trellis with thorny determination. The tulips stood in neat rows like soldiers, and the hydrangeas bloomed in shades of blue and pink, depending on the soil's acidity, which she adjusted meticulously each season. By 7 a.m., Robert would descend the stairs, his footsteps heavy on the creaky wood. At 57, he carried the weight of his years in the slight paunch around his middle and the deepening lines around his eyes. But to Eleanor, he was still the handsome young accountant she'd met at a college mixer. He'd greet her with a perfunctory kiss on the cheek, his stubble scratching lightly against her skin. "Morning, Ellie," he'd say, his voice gravelly from sleep. She'd smile and hand him his mug, black, no sugar, before turning to the stove. Breakfast was always the same: scrambled eggs whipped to fluffy perfection, whole grain toast slathered with butter, and a bowl of seasonal fruit sliced neatly. Robert would unfold the newspaper, the rustle of pages a comforting soundtrack as he scanned the headlines, occasionally grunting at the state of the economy or the latest sports scores. Their marriage had settled into a groove worn smooth by time. It wasn't the passionate whirlwind of their youth, but it was solid, dependable. Robert's job at Harlan & Associates kept him busy with spreadsheets and tax forms, his evenings often spent in his recliner, remote in hand, flipping between channels. Eleanor, after retiring from teaching elementary school 5 years ago, had channeled her energy into community activities. She volunteered at the local library 3 mornings a week, organizing story hours for children and recommending books to patrons with a gentle enthusiasm. Her book club met every Thursday evening, a group of 5 women who dissected novels over tea and scones, sharing insights that often veered into personal confessions. The children were her greatest joy, though they were far from children now. Emily, 28, lived in a tiny apartment in Manhattan, chasing dreams in the competitive world of graphic design. She called every Sunday, her voice bubbling with stories of gallery openings and late-night deadlines. Michael, 26, was in Boston, climbing the corporate ladder in finance. His calls were briefer, more pragmatic, but always ended with, "Love you, Mom." Eleanor missed the chaos of their younger years, the school projects, the soccer games, the endless laundry. But she took solace in knowing she'd raised them well. It was into this serene existence that the first cracks began to appear. Robert's late nights at the office increased. "Deadlines," he'd explain vaguely, waving a hand as if to dismiss the concern. His phone, once abandoned on the entryway table amid keys and mail, now buzzed incessantly and was guarded like a treasure. Eleanor noticed the way he'd angle the screen away from her, his thumbs flying across it with uncharacteristic urgency. She chalked it up to work stress. After all, the firm was handling more high-profile clients these days. Then, there was Sophia, Eleanor's cousin on her mother's side. Sophia Larson was a force of nature, 10 years younger and worlds apart in temperament. At 45, Sophia had the energy of someone half her age, her life a whirlwind of reinventions. Divorced from her first husband after a whirlwind romance that ended in flames, and her second after a more protracted battle over assets, she had no children to anchor her. Instead, she flitted from city to city, job to job. Her latest venture was real estate, selling upscale condos in bustling markets. 6 months ago, after yet another failed relationship, she'd landed in Maplewood, renting a chic loft above a coffee shop downtown. Eleanor had been thrilled. Family ties were sacred to her, forged in the shared holidays and reunions of their childhood. She'd helped Sophia unpack, stocking her fridge with homemade casseroles and offering advice on local amenities. "You'll love it here," Eleanor had said, hugging her tightly. It's quiet, but full of good people. Sophia was striking, tall and lithe, with cascading auburn waves and emerald eyes that sparkled with mischief. She dressed in bold colors, her outfits always accessorized with statement jewelry that clinked softly as she moved. Her laughter was infectious, filling rooms with warmth. During family dinners, which Eleanor insisted on hosting weekly, Sophia would regale them with tales of exotic travels, backpacking through Europe in her 20s, a spontaneous trip to Bali last year. Robert, usually reserved, would lean in, his eyes lighting up. "You make it sound so adventurous," he'd say, chuckling. Eleanor smiled at their banter, glad to see her husband engaged. One crisp April evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Eleanor decided to inject some spontaneity into their routine. She baked Robert's favorite apple pie, the crust golden and flaky, the filling bubbling with cinnamon-scented apples from the farmer's market. Wrapping it carefully, she drove to his office, imagining his surprised delight. The building was a squat brick structure on the edge of town, its parking lot nearly empty at 6:30 p.m. She climbed the stairs to the second floor, her heels clicking on the linoleum. His office door was ajar, but the room was dark, desk lamp off, computer screen blank. Papers were stacked neatly, no sign of the frantic work he'd described. Frowning, Eleanor pulled out her phone and dialed his number. It rang 4 times before voicemail kicked in. "This is Robert Thompson. Leave a message." Unease prickled her skin as she drove home. The pie sat untouched on the passenger seat, its warmth fading. When Robert finally arrived at 9:15 p.m., his tie loosened and shirt rumpled, he smelled of something floral. Jasmine, perhaps, not the usual office scent of stale coffee and printer ink. "Rough day?" Eleanor asked, forcing a smile as she reheated dinner. "Yeah, meetings ran long," he replied, not meeting her eyes. He pecked her cheek and headed straight for the fridge, grabbing a beer. That night, in the queen-sized bed they'd shared for decades, Eleanor lay awake, staring at the patterns of moonlight on the ceiling. Robert's breathing was steady beside her, but her mind raced. Was it nothing? Or the beginning of something she couldn't yet name? The subtle shifts in Robert's behavior gnawed at Eleanor like a persistent itch she couldn't scratch. Mornings, once a time of shared quiet, now felt strained. He'd scroll through his phone during breakfast, a small smile playing on his lips at messages she wasn't privy to. "Work stuff," he'd mutter if she glanced over. Eleanor nodded, but doubt festered. Sophia's visits became more frequent, her knocks on the door a cheerful interruption to Eleanor's afternoons. She'd breeze in with bags of gourmet cheeses or bottles of imported wine, her perfume trailing like a signature. "Thought we'd have a girls' night," she'd say, though Robert was often home early those days. The 3 of them would sit in the living room, Sophia's stories dominating. She spoke of a recent trip to Miami, where she danced until dawn at a beach club. Robert laughed heartily, his hand occasionally brushing Sophia's as he passed the wine. Eleanor observed from the armchair, a glass untouched in her hand. She noticed the way Sophia's eyes lingered on Robert, the subtle tilt of her head when he spoke. "You're so funny, Rob," Sophia would say, using the nickname Eleanor had long abandoned. Robert preened under the attention, his posture straightening. One rainy Tuesday, while folding laundry in the basement, Eleanor emptied Robert's pockets out of habit. Amid lint and loose change was a crumpled receipt from La Trattoria, an intimate Italian spot in the neighboring town of Oakville. The date matched last Thursday, when Robert had texted he'd be late due to an audit. Items listed: bruschetta, 2 pasta dishes, a shared tiramisu, and a bottle of Chianti, $85.42, paid with his credit card. Her hands trembled as she smoothed the paper. Why hadn't he mentioned it? That evening, as Robert hung his coat, Eleanor confronted him in the hallway. "Found this in your pocket," she said, voice steady despite her pounding heart. He took it, scanning quickly. "Client meeting, why? You said you were at the office all night. It was off-site." "What's with the 3rd degree, Ellie?" I just feel like something's off." He pulled her into an embrace, his arms familiar yet distant. "You're imagining things. I love you. Let's not fight over nothing." She melted into him, wanting to believe. But the doubt lingered, a shadow in her mind. The next day, Sophia suggested lunch at Café Bella, a sunny spot with outdoor seating. Eleanor agreed, hoping for distraction. Over salads and iced teas, Sophia chattered about a difficult client. Eleanor interrupted midway. "Soph, has Robert seemed different to you? Distant, maybe?" Sophia froze, fork poised. "Different? No, why? He's been late a lot." "Secretive." Sophia set her fork down, expression sympathetic. "It's probably stress. Men get weird at his age. Hormones or whatever. Don't worry. He's devoted to you." Eleanor's gaze searched Sophia's face. Was that a hint of evasion? A quick glance away? That night, insomnia gripped her. Robert snored peacefully as she slipped downstairs. His phone charged on the nightstand. She took it to the kitchen. The password, their wedding date, unlocked it easily. Texts from Sophia filled the screen. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. Sophia with a winking emoji. Robert, you too. Ellie's at yoga tomorrow. Come by? Further back, photos of Sophia in lingerie. Descriptions of encounters in motels, his office after hours. The affair spanned 4 months, starting shortly after Sophia's arrival. Eleanor's world shattered. She sank to the floor, sobs silent but wrenching. Betrayal burned like acid. Word count for Chapter 2, approximately 800. Chapter 3, The Storm Breaks, expanded. Morning dawned gray and heavy, mirroring Eleanor's soul. She moved mechanically, cracking eggs, toasting bread, her eyes red-rimmed. Robert kissed her goodbye, oblivious or pretending. Once alone, she printed the messages, pages of evidence stacked like accusations. She texted Sophia, "Come over, urgent." Sophia arrived disheveled, makeup smudged. "Ellie, you okay?" Eleanor slapped the papers on the table. Red. Sophia's face crumpled as she scanned. "Ellie, explain." "It wasn't planned. We connected. I was vulnerable after my breakup. And Robert, he listened. One drink led to another. You seduced my husband." "No, it was mutual. I love him, Ellie, truly. Love, get out. You're dead to me." Sophia fled, tears streaming. Eleanor paced, fury building. Robert returned to a dimly lit house. "Honey, dinner? Sit," Eleanor commanded, pointing to the couch. The printouts waited. His eyes widened. "How? Doesn't matter. It's true?" "Yes," he admitted, head bowed. "I'm ashamed." "Ashamed? You've destroyed us. With my cousin." It was escape. Life felt routine. Sophia brought excitement. "And I'm what? Boring? No. You're my foundation. Please, counseling? I'll end it. I need space. Couch tonight." The house echoed with silence in the weeks that followed. Robert groveled, roses, notes, promises. Eleanor confided in Emily and Michael. Emily arrived the next day, enveloping her in a hug. "Mom, you're strong. We'll get through this." Michael's call was heated. "Dad, you're a fool. Fix this or lose us all." Eleanor found refuge in her garden, yanking weeds with therapeutic violence. She attended a support group, stories of infidelity resonating. Anger gave way to grief, then determination. Word count for Chapter 3, approximately 500. Chapter 4, Rebuilding from Ashes, expanded. Divorce proceedings were clinical, a dismantling of 32 years. Robert moved out, his boxes a somber procession. Sophia vanished, family consensus shunning her. Eleanor embraced change. With Emily, she explored Paris. Eiffel Tower views, Seine cruises, croissants in cafes. Laughter returned. Home, she painted, abstracts of emotion, sold at local fairs. She dated Mark, a gentle librarian, their walks hand-in-hand healing. At 56, Eleanor thrived. Betrayal scarred, but she emerged resilient, life vibrant anew.